Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you so much to the whole Octant team for having us here. Super, super excited to be on this panel with these amazing people. I am sure they need very little introduction. The topic of the panel today, actually tonight, I'm in Bali and it's midnight for me, but I love you guys, so I'm here. We're going to talk about how to build a successful career in DeFi. For that purpose, I am wearing my special DeFi glasses. So let's start with a couple of introductions. I will read out briefly the bios of our speakers today, and then we'll jump into the questions. So first, we have the DeFi Dave. DeFi Dave is the head of growth at CAP and has contributed to various projects over the years, including Frax, Dinero / Redacted, and Gelato. Next up, we have Tokenbrice. Tokenbrice, I think you and I met about a year ago, maybe in Bucharest or someplace. We were on a panel together. He is the founder of DeFiScan. He recently started a X show, which is live, and it's called Tokenbrice's Spotlight, where he interviews new protocols. So make sure that you check that out and follow him. And Elliot Friedman is the founder of Solidity Labs. Over the course of his career, and this is really impressive, guys, he has deployed over 67 smart contracts, collectively securing 2.1 billion in TVL with 2.2 plus million transactions and 0 losses to hacks. So welcome, everybody. Super excited to have you. And let's start with our first question. Give us the lore. What did you do before DeFi? Dave, let's start with you.
Before DeFi, I mean, I've been in crypto for 8 years, and before that, I graduated college. To be honest, so I've pretty much always been in crypto. There was like a small gap where I worked for a startup that was an encyclopedia, and one day we woke up and we were like, "What if we were a blockchain encyclopedia?" And so that's how I got into crypto in 2017. And I had an internship in Congress. I was at Hilton 11 years ago. So that's what I did before DeFi. But other than that, I've just been doing crypto stuff since 2017.
That is pretty epic. And do not get me started on politics because I could talk to you about that literally all day. So let's not do that. Very
Yeah.
questionable. Tokenbrice, what did you do before DeFi?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to Dave. I've worked essentially maybe 3 years in the non-DeFi space. So at this point, my career has been mostly in there. But yeah, I was doing actually something pretty not too far from it. I was essentially working with tech startup and helping them with online digital strategy, essentially. So there was a bit of this concept because those were, like SaaS product with APIs and things like that. So there was a bit of this notion already of, okay, you have a dense, complex product that also requires some industry knowledge. How do you explain it and its benefits to your clients? That needs a bit of education. So I guess that's that's a helpful overlap in DeFi because the themes are very similar in that regard.
That's cool. It sounds like you've been following your passion this whole time. And for any marketer watching, how do you explain what projects do? That is the one topic of pain for most of us here. Now, what about you, Elliot? What did you do before DeFi?
So before DeFi, I was very interested in crypto for ideological reasons. So in high school, I got into trading, and I remember like the Dogecoin coming out and all sorts of just the lore from back then was absolutely crazy. And so yeah, the idea of money outside of the control of state, I was like really fascinated by as a high schooler. And then I self-taught programming, and I worked for IBM doing enterprise blockchains and helping them settle invoices for contract labor on the blockchain. So I think that was a really formative experience and really interesting because it gave a window into like how these enterprises are thinking about crypto and blockchains in general. So.
Wow, you had me at Dogecoin. That feels like ages ago. Oh my God, I feel so old right now. You were in high school. That is crazy. And I think that it's so good to know, like you said, how these enterprises think, because if you want to change the system at some point, you really have to understand how it works. So thank you for your service in that. Now, On to our second question. What have you found the most helpful in building a career? And maybe it's been your resume, maybe it has been getting involved with a project when you were starting out. Did you maybe intern someplace, or would you attribute your success to just getting on Twitter, now X, and just constantly yapping? If you could pinpoint something, what would that be?
I think it's for me two things. One, making content. I feel like the biggest thing I did was the podcast pretty consistently when I was doing Flywheel for over 2 years. We did 131 episodes in 130 weeks, and just it's not about like one podcast or two podcasts that might get like a few hundred views, but when you have a body of work that's over 100, you're gonna have at least like thousands, tens of thousands of people that have seen your content if you're doing a good job. And then I'd say the second thing is going to conferences. I think like the most EV plus thing you can do if you're new to the space is go to a conference and just talk to meet as many people as possible. Once you find your circles and people you need to know, like you don't have to go to as many conferences. In fact, it may be work, but I think those are the two things: like making content, going to conferences, and just being genuine about it.
I think these are such amazing tips. And honestly, I have the same exact background. So for you, Dave, were you paying out of pocket to go to these events at first, or were you kind of getting invited to things?
I was fortunate that I was doing it through my work. I started going to I mean, when I was working at Gelato, like it was right after COVID, and that's when all the conferences started up again. So I was fortunate enough to like, because I was doing BD and growth for Gelato, and so that's how I was able to like travel to all the conferences. Like having flight and hotel booked helps. Um, but if you like don't have like the same benefit as that, then I just be very intentional which conference you pick. And also like just like you don't have to like go that far. You can just like either go to a local meetup, or go to like the main hub that's like in your country or a region. Like if you're in the States, New York is the spot. Like I like to say that New York is a permanent conference. Like you can come here any week of the year and there's something going on and there's people around.
I love that. I love that. And one tip to share as well, when I was starting at events, I actually was self-employed and I was a copywriter and a coach at the time. And what I would do is I would actually write emails to these events and be like, hey, are you looking for someone that can speak publicly? Because I can MC for you, I can moderate panels for you. And sometimes you would be surprised if you actually get comfortable, like Dave said, making content and speaking, you might actually get comped to go to these events. But what I'm hearing you say is you started creating content, started going to events. It doesn't have to be super far from home, and it doesn't have to be like 25 conferences per year. It could be like a major too. So that is the takeaway that I'm hearing from
Exactly.
everyone.
Yeah. And I don't make just any content. Like make stuff that you're genuinely interested in and that you're able to have a unique voice, because a lot of people just, they have the same slot, they have the same copy paste. But I like encourage everyone to like develop their own unique voice. You don't have to like, you're not going to be perfect starting out, so it's fine if you emulate people and whatnot. But it's just like over time you develop your own unique voice, and then people gravitate towards that. People gravitate towards passion, and they gravitate towards just like that. It gravitates towards uniqueness. So
Absolutely. That was a really good point. What about you, Tokenbrice? What was the one thing that you can pinpoint, or maybe two things, because Dave had two, that has been the most helpful for you at the beginning stages of your DeFi career?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, I guess, similar in some ways. At my level, I would say really following your passion is what makes sense. So, at my level, that was initially my blog. I just wrote about my discoveries in DeFi's protocol I liked. And back then, nobody was writing about DeFi. So I want to say the bar was pretty low to grow with the space. And I was, but maybe more even is the community, the local community. So I was very involved in the early days of DeFi Friends. Now it's pretty much run by every other people, and I'm just watching it grow like a retired dad. But yeah, this was very formative, and it helps you make a lot of connections that are very actionable connections, because there are people sharing your DeFi interest in your area. I sound like a dating website now. But you get me. I mean, I think this was key to help me grow for sure, and more broadly get involved. So again, with DeFiScan and DeFi Collective being an association, maybe it's a bit easy for me to say so, but yeah, I think it's the same logic essentially. It's both formative at your personal level. You're gonna learn a lot just getting you involved with this kind of adventures, and also it's resume building essentially. We don't really use CV or whatever in DeFi, but your involvement is noticed and can help you uh, reach other positions in the space, or can be a starting point. We actually had the story already with a couple of contributors of the collective. Being with the collective for a while, usually a decent amount of time, but then eventually they get noticed, and they end up working for a protocol. And it's both happy and sad moment when that happens. I'm happy for the guys, sad for the collective, but it's okay. The structure will keep going on. But yeah, I think that's definitely a solid way to build a career in DeFi.
That's such good advice. And I think very similar to what Dave said, connections. So get involved, start contributing, you'll get noticed, in creativity. So you wrote a blog, which goes to show that if your passion is to be a writer, you can go and do that. If your passion is to create video, you can go and do that. Now, what about you, Elliot? What has been the one or two things that have been the most helpful starting out?
So I want to echo kind of what you had to say, Tokenbrice, about finding the thing that you're really interested in, because I think that like crypto is permissionless and there's so many different things that have to get done. Like being a good Twitter shitposter, like, is actually like an incredible job. So I think that like following that natural interest where you have that fire and you have that energy and like the thing that just lights you up. And so for me, that was, and still is, like smart contract engineering. Like I really just like geek out on it. Like the first time someone showed me like an ERC20 contract, I was like, whoa, that's so crazy. Like you can just make a token. Like this is just so nuts. And so I think like learning Solidity and kind of learning skills that are valuable, and like going really, really deep, I think will like set you apart from the pack and will make you really stand out. Because if you're like, okay, if you're like the #1 Twitter shitposter and you have like 100 like banger tweets a day, like then when Coinbase is like, oh my God, we need someone to help us on our comms, like they're gonna be like, oh my God, wait, that guy, he's so cracked. So I think that really falling down the rabbit hole and pursuing the things that you find interesting are going to be really good for your career. And then for me also personally, finding bugs in smart contracts that were live, I think that was like, that really allowed me to like set myself apart and be like, hey, look, I found this bug that could like make millions of dollars, basically go poof like that. And so I think that it's just leaning into the things that you're interested in and going down a rabbit hole.
So contribution, and I think you're so spot on. When you have that laser focus, which will be very likely related to your passion, it will help you become really good at something really quickly. So then if you want to debug things, if you want to shitpost, that's totally fine. Find your thing and pretty much get obsessed with it, which I love. I think that is something that a lot of us share. Now, our next question, and this is something that I think about all the time. I'm sure that you guys get DMs, cold DMs, lukewarm DMs, mid DMs, all sorts of DMs. When you're trying to network with people, especially when that is online, how do you do that? How do you slide into someone's DM without feeling awkward, without sounding cringe, so that they actually want to talk to you?
Yeah, it's like even to this day, I slide into DMs cold. And there's different ways to do and go about it. I think it goes back to being genuine and passionate and having something unique to say. You can't just go in and be like, hey, what's up? You can go in, but if you go in with like saying something funny or meme or like something that like the other person can relate to, or if you have like one of the best ways is if you like use the person's product and you have like a genuine question or feedback about the product or the protocol. That's what gets my attention. There's a lot of times like when I see people write about cap, I'll go in their DMs and thank them. And if they have any like mistakes in the article, I like offer them corrections and whatnot. That actually happened twice. It happened twice in the past 24 hours. So yeah, I don't think people should be afraid to DM. In fact, cold DMs are a great way to grow your network because you never know where a cold DM can lead.
That's right. I love that. And it's cool to hear that so many people are interested in Cap and talking about it. Good for you guys.
Yeah,
Well,
I like to think of it as like the Alon method. Like when Alon from Pump Fun started out, and no one really cared or knew who he was. He DM'd hundreds of people, and so many people ignored him. Sure, but then you see like a year or 2 years later, people are like, "Oh man, I should have entered that DM."
Exactly. Which goes to show when you're obsessed with something and you want it really bad, you just keep at it. What
hmm
about you, Tokenbrice? When you're looking to start a conversation with someone, how do you slide into their DMs?
Yeah, I mean, there is no one way for sure. I'd agree that for the track record in a way helps. So if you're doing things on chain, you're keeping in touch with what's happening, that essentially kind of maximize the angle that you have for this kind of situation. And more often than not, mm, you would end up, you know the person, or someone that can intro you to the person, just because of your other engagement. So that's more the way it goes for me, and I guess I'm blessed enough that when it goes over that stage, usually at this level, I just can ask, in a group or two, and maybe one of my friend will have the contact or a contact at this protocol. So it's teams are still pretty accessible. I feel, especially if you don't come in random and empty-handed. Problem with DM is you get a lot of spam and completely absurd stuff, like Twitter growth or Instagram follower or launch a coin, try this referral for this exchange. But still, most of it is noise essentially, and very few are decent. So if you take the time, you actually thought about what you're trying to accomplish there. You can explicit why you are connecting to that person in the message and what you're looking to do out of it, or what's the reason, and so on. Basic stuff, but yeah, take the time, don't GPT it, and it should be fine.
Do not GPT. It's so funny. I was actually looking at some GPT emails earlier today. A few of us were looking at them and we're just cringing so hard. So bring some value. Like Dave said, use the product, have an opinion on the product. Tokenbrice says, bring some value. Don't make it self-centered. What about you, Elliot? If you were to slide into a DM or if someone slides into your DMs, what's going to catch your attention?
I think that a lot of themes from both what DeFi Dave and Tokenbrice were talking about in terms of adding value and being like genuinely interested, and not just being like some LLM slop or copy pasta. I think that when people have like a genuine ask, like, hey, I'm trying to solve this problem, or I'm working on this kind of thing. I saw you had a similar experience. Like, how would you think about this? Or like, I think those are things that make me a lot more interested to respond naturally. And then I think that in terms of generally networking in DeFi and like doing that in a way that's not just like transactional or just, kind of comes off as low effort, I think that finding people that have similar interests or where you have like something in common and like something that you share, and that could be something very small, or that could be like like, oh hey, you're working in similar roles, but I think that is really helpful, and especially, and then once you have that shared connection or that commonality, kind of providing value and asking questions that are like build towards something or are topical in terms of like the current narrative or meta. I think that's and then I think things are a lot more natural that way versus just like, oh, I'm just reaching out to you cold.
And one thing that comes to mind is also that people sometimes expect that they're going to drop one message and it's going to be like, yes, let me give you so much money. Let me hire you. You're the one. It's a little bit like courting a partner. It's a little bit like dating. You're going to slide into the DM one time and then you're going to build a relationship over time where you give them some value and they reciprocate. And that's how the relationship grows, which is why it's called relationship building and not just selling stuff. So I think you've all made some really, really solid points. If anyone here is wondering how the hell to slide into a DM, those are some really solid tips. Now,
I
the
actually have a
next,
free
yeah,
bonus if you have a minute. I just thought of it as Elliot was speaking, is because I caught myself using it as an indicator to kind of filter. Is we do have some on-chain credential stuff. I'm thinking, for instance, ethos, but also like I don't know, the Gitcoin Passport, or or any things to prove that you're real human, or some behavior that you can look at. But more specifically, I'm thinking the ESO score, for instance. I do, there is an extension that kind of built it into your Twitter, so you can see it from people interacting with you on Twitter. And I started to, use it as an indicator, essentially, like, to put it simply, I guess if someone with a ESOS over 1,400, ask me a question. I mean, usually I read the questions anyway, but I would be more attentive, or I don't know, it would catch my attention faster just with the, it's popping out with the color. Essentially, you start to be like in the green zone around your trusted person as per ethos. I mean, that's one, but that could be whatever. The problem is it's not so integrated within DeFi right now. So it's more something that you use, when you're doing DeFi background check. So like if I'm hiring someone, I will check your wallet, see if you have a Gitcoin Passport. Yeah, maybe, okay, the dude is here for 4 years. Has he donated anywhere or done anything, beyond just pure financial? Or all kinds of stuff can be taken into account. And hopefully one day we will have something like integrated, like on Twitter, you'll see a wallet score whatsoever. That would be ace.
we can only hope. These are great tips, actually. These are such technical, actionable tips that people really need to pay attention and take them away. And a friend from the Ethereum Foundation some time ago, maybe a year ago, said literally the same thing. So that's a really good thing to keep in mind. Now, we have time for 2 more questions. One thing that I really want to know is, what was the biggest mistake you have made in your DeFi career?
I think the biggest mistake, it's not really a mistake, like a actual mistake, but more so of like a trap that I sometimes fall myself, like see myself fall into even to this day, is to compare yourself to people. Everybody has their own path. Everybody has their own special set of skills. And so when you compare yourselves to traders, to developers, or like, oh, I should learn how to trade, or oh, I should learn to do. No, don't think. Figure out like what you're good at. Double down on that, and keep developing that skill. And as mentioned before, like provide value to people. It's like if you provide value to people, and they're the right people, they're going to reciprocate back. So my advice is just don't. The mistake I make, and my advice is don't compare yourself to people.
That is so key. And it reminds me, when I was first getting started in crypto, I thought that I had to learn how to code. And I am
Yeah, it's a
not
big
good with,
mistake. Yes.
yes, like if you're not good with numbers, if you're not good with like logistical things, just don't waste that time that you're going to spend learning, say something like Solidity, and not enjoy it and get nothing out of it. So I think that we've seen a big change in the space compared to even a few years ago. And now I speak about this all the time, but there is a content creation arc. So people who want to work in DeFi, who want to create videos and whatnot, you could use these skills and your knowledge of DeFi to get into the space. You don't have to be a coder. So don't waste time pursuing something that's going to make you miserable. That's very good advice. What would you say, Tokenbrice?
Oh, not much to add, really. Yeah, try out things. I guess it's a bit hard too, because the space is still new. The roles are not so clearly defined, so it's not every time you start a new position, a new involvement. It's kind of, you're never certain what you're getting into. Essentially, it's not like a good old industry job that you could be more in have a bit more predictability, let's say. So I'd say a bit similar to what Dave was saying. Don't be afraid to like try out a few things, a few different roles. If you have a fit that don't work, it's okay to make a jump as well. As long as the next is more centered on what you enjoy doing, and so what you're doing good, better than the others, and then you find your crew. I feel that's kind of like that could be the tagline for this show. At the end of the day, it's like. yeah, you need to get involved, go around, go on chain, try things, use products, and eventually meet people, and kind of out of all that chaos, stuff will emerge pretty much organically, spontaneously.
That is such a good visual. And I think that in the end, you naturally end up doing so. It's just like starting college, for example, and not knowing where to go, which way. And by following your passions, whether that's like, I don't know, like playing sports or theater or whatever, you end up with the right people. What about you, Elliot? The question was, I'm starting to lose track of the question. What was the biggest mistake that you have ever made in your DeFi career?
That's a really good question, and I had to think about that for a while. I feel like being it's such a good question. Now I think that being really gut driven and like really trusting your gut, I think is so important in crypto and DeFi in general, because you're not going to have like all of the data when you're joining or you're starting some early stage startup, right? There's not going to be like, oh, here, there's all this revenue, or there's this, or there's that, or like we have all these, customers already lined up. So I think that really just trusting your own intuition and following that and being true to yourself, I think that's, I think that when I have not trusted my own intuition, I think that's when, things have like gone the worst. So I think that, yeah, definitely follow your gut and follow your instincts, because it's such a new space. And I think that also, using the products, like, getting on chain and trying out the new DeFi protocol and trying out the new thing that like kind of doesn't really make sense, or like maybe their narrative isn't like the most polished yet, but I think that's how you go right. And yeah.
That's a great tip, because anytime something is not completely polished, that means that they could use your help to get it to where it really could be. And I love that you said that. Pedro Gomez was the founder of WalletConnect, where I work, and I've had this conversation so many times about trusting your gut, because the data could tell you a lot. I mean, even if you look at the presidential elections of this past cycle in the States, the data is the data, but then people who really trust their gut are the ones that could accurately call it. Now, we have just about 2 minutes left. So let me ask you guys to leave our viewers today with one practical tip on what to do if they want to be successful in DeFi, whether that is go talk to 100 people, create a resume, be yourself, trust your gut. What is your one practical tip?
Go.
I'll do. Oh,
You can go.
no, it's just super simple. Just a list of the first thing that I will think of, and then I stop. Go have an ENS, go on Gitcoin or on Gives, try it out, create your profile, verify, donate to something. Go try some product, Kaito, Essos, there are others, Cookie, anything in the info file. Go see around, find out. Maybe get a DeFiLlama premium if you can, just for a month, so you can access to all the data. All kinds of things you can do on chain.
Love it.
Yeah. My one actionable tip is go cold DM somebody you look up to and ask them a genuine, unique question, whether it's about themselves, a protocol, or something related to them.
And
very good point.
So I think don't limit yourself. Like, crypto is permissionless, and find your tribe of people. Like, find the group of people that you really like jam with and you really gel with, and go message 100 people and be genuine, and be curious, and go figure out what it's all about. So
Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you all so much. Thank you,
Thank you.
Octant. Thank you, Michelle. We're out
You
of
can make
time.
a whole guide from this panel, honestly.
Absolutely. What a fantastic panel. Thank you, Dayana.
Thanks, guys.
Dave.